Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the difference that a distance kept from a runway during a traffic pattern can make in the event of an engine failure. Let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, we have ourselves a lovely Diamond 40. I feel like I never get to fly this thing, which is kind of funny because my current setup right now is actually very conducive to the way the controls are actually arranged. And I love how simple this airplane is. I'm just, I like these old school gauges, I can't help myself. But one thing I will do though is I'm just going to shut that off real quick, save a couple frames, why not? So what we're going to do today is we're going to be taking off, and we're going to be doing two different traffic patterns here. The first traffic pattern is going to be what I consider kind of the classic traffic pattern, and the other one's going to be a much tighter traffic pattern. And what we're hoping to see today is what reaction or what changes it's going to make as far as the safety of the aircraft goes. So let's go ahead and try it. Give this thing full power. Maybe if I raise up the mower blades, I'll be able to achieve a slightly better speed here. But that's all right. You know, somebody's got to mow the asphalt. Now, this really is an amazing plane. There are very few planes I know of in existence that have visibility as good as this plane does. One thing I'm not a fan of with the Diamond 40 is it has a kind of a weird stall to it that's a little on the sketchy side, in my opinion. But again, we'll do that. All right, so let's go ahead and pretend we're doing ourselves everybody's favorite standard traffic pattern. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pick up some speed here. We're going to get a little bit of altitude. We're going to pop ourselves right up to 700 feet above ground level. We're basically at sea level here, so 700 feet is basically going to be 720 feet-ish as far as what it's going to say on the display. So I'm going to give myself a couple whacks of trim. Now, if you remember on a video ages ago, we went ahead and did a little demonstration where we intentionally killed the engine and saw if we could safely land the plane. Now, I don't know about you, but if I had to do that, I'd probably pick beach or probably that little wharf over there or something like that. I wouldn't dare to try to 180 this plane. 700 feet, let's take our turn. But for this one, we're going to go ahead and get a little bit of altitude and see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and keep everything a nice and standard rate. You know, I'm going to go ahead and do my continuous climb here. I'm not going to do anything a little extreme. And I'm just going to bring myself out. You know, there's our cross one right there. I'll go ahead and level the plane off. Continue my climb a little bit. Let's go ahead and level the plane off. Go push that nose down. We're going to do too many things at once here. You always want to be super cautious. Back that throttle up. And we're going to come into a nice little kind of left downwind here. Got a little bit of the bumps today, but that does not surprise me in the slightest. There's been a bit of a weird front coming through recently. So I would consider this to kind of be sort of your standard traffic pattern distance. So we're about 2.5, 3 miles off the side. Everything is looking pretty darn good. We're looking pretty solid. I'm going to come clean this up a little bit. It's a little ugly. There we go. Now it looks delicious. Engine failure. Okay. So we've lost our engine, so let's kind of see what's happening here. So immediately we want to get to our glide speed. Glide speed for this one's going to be right around 75 knots. So I'm going to slow down to 75-ish, and we're going to go ahead and start floating our way towards the runway. Again, no engine here. This is just a good old-fashioned standard distance. I'm going to have to pull myself out just a tiny bit. According to the FAR, they're always warning you to say, hey, just so you know, when you're doing any sort of these flights, you want to get yourself immediately to glide speed so that you can safely judge how far you're going to be traveling based on the current glide. They're not wrong. They're not wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of slowly make my way here. Again, everything's looking okay. I'm trying to keep it so that if my engine died, which it did, I can at least come land. There's a railroad track under me. And now I'm going to be coming towards the downwind here, which is going to make things a little bit sketchy. I'm not going to put those flaps in right away, but I actually can get a little bit more out of this plane. There we go. Looks pretty good. There's a big old runway 23 there. It's looking pretty solid. I'm going to go ahead and put that first notch of flaps in. We're going to go ahead and take this nice, gentle left bank here. Go ahead and pop in those last notches of flaps. We're coming in really high. It is way better to end up high in this situation than it's going to be end up low, because that means crash. Again, I have not touched the engine. I'm actually going to slip the plane just a tiny bit here because I want to help slow down. And we're coming in a little on the hot side, but I'm not worried about it too much. The flaps on the Diamond are not exactly like big barn doors like you get on a 172. So this is a fun aircraft to practice that in. I'm going to get myself nice and low. Go ahead and cancel out that crazy little crab. We're going to have to play the wee game because of all that energy I just lost. And we're going to go set ourselves down right here. Delightful. Go ahead and kill the flaps, and let's go ahead and take off, and let's do it again. The only difference this time is that we're going to intentionally take the traffic pattern a bit wide and see what it does to us. So I'm going to go ahead and take off using standard technique, as you can see, just like we did a moment ago. I'm going to climb up to my normal traffic pattern altitude, do basically everything the same way I did the first time. The only difference is when it comes time to go ahead and pull that downwind, then I'm going to pull the throttle, and you're going to watch it have a very, very significant change on us as far as what's going to happen to our performance here when we try to safely get this thing on the ground. Now, again, this is one of those things that I've just been looking at kind of in my own flying recently, trying to come up with ways to improve it a little bit. So there's 500 feet. Man, does this thing climb like crazy. This is great. Getting like 1,000 feet per minute on this thing. That's awesome. There's a 650, 700. We're going to go ahead and enter into the same left traffic pattern that we did before. Go ahead and dig our crosswind right here. We're not doing anything fancy yet. We're going to save the fancy for when we try to pull a little bit too wide. That looks pretty good right there. A little bit of right foot. Get a little more altitude here. We're going to get just a little bit. Like I said, usually I do these things visually. I can't really judge them by like altitudes or anything. It's different every single time you do it. Now we're going to go ahead and swing this way. I'm going to go ahead and pull the throttle back to the 75% point. And we're just going to push the nose down, and we're going to get ourselves nice and squared off of the runway. So this is basically the same exact pattern as I did before. The only difference is I've intentionally brought myself out just a little tiny bit. So ideally, we should be on a 50-degree heading or so, which is what we're on. Give myself a couple whacks it down trim here. This thing likes to pick up speed. There we go. A little too much. Little too much. Little too much. There we go. Very nice. All right, so we're cruising along, correct altitudes. Everything's good. Our traffic pattern's just a tiny bit wide here. Looking good, looking good. Look out my window. Everything's fine. Don't have to worry about anything. This is nice and relaxing. That looks pretty good. I think it's time to go ahead and start slowing down. I'm going to pull the throttle back. And we're going to go ahead and start a descent down onto the runway here. Slowing down, we'll get that first notch of flaps in right away. Picking up a little bit of speed here. We need to get this thing slow enough so we can pop into the white arc. Looks good, looks good. Looking at my window, we're looking for that magical 45 like we always want to look for. Keep cruising down. I can go ahead and get that second notch in when I'm ready. I'm not going to do it just yet. Got the window, and 45 is going to be right about there. Go ahead and take a turn. We're going to go ahead and pop in our second notch of flaps. Continue our turn here. Everything is running fine, and my engine died. Uh-oh. As before, we have 2 notches of flaps now. We want to get rid of one of those notches of flaps. We're immediately going to pitch for 75 and make our way towards the end of the runway as fast as we can. So I'm going to go ahead and take a nice gentle bank turn here. And now you can see the problem. Go ahead and give myself a little more trim here, and I am completely out of up trim. And you can take a look out the window and realize that we are now in crisis mode. Looking out right now, you can see, even though I'm doing exactly the correct speed for what I need to be, that runway is an awfully long distance away from me. By the way, if you hadn't brought up that notch of flaps quick enough, you would have found yourself with the ground a lot sooner. I'm looking at my airspeed. It's starting to tick down really, really quickly. I'm doing about 71 knots. The dumb thing here would be to go ahead and pop that last notch of flaps down. If I pop that last notch of flaps down, what's going to happen is I'm going to lose all my lift, and I'm going to crash right into the ground. I'm a little high based on what the runway says, but if you look at my airspeed, I am just a hair above my stall speed. As a matter of fact, I am terrified to even touch the controls right now because I know I'm going to lift if I turn. Airspeed is now down to 70 knots. The plane is getting a little departy on me. 68 knots. Oh my gosh, the plane's getting departy. No, you don't. 65 knots. 64, you're going to hear the stall alarm. Oh my gosh. Oh. We made it. So what I hoped you could see from my little demonstration there is the fact that when we brought that traffic pattern out as far as we did, as wide as we did, you noticed immediately that I almost died. You know, if this had been a warmer day and we had a worse density altitude, maybe the headwind was stronger, we would never have made that landing. We got incredibly lucky today that that happened. So when you're taking that left and left and left to put that thing on the ground, always be ready to have no engine. Enjoy.